From a fraudulent instructor killing a student pilot to a horrible flat spin death for 61 in Brazil. It's been a busy week in aviation news and breaking news on Scott Bloomquist on taking off. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken with a weekly recap of the news. We've got new information on the man that continued to instruct after losing his certificates, which resulted in the death of a student pilot. Also, big news on the ATR airplane that spun into the ground. But before all that, breaking news on a small plane crash in Tennessee. Legendary dirt late model racer Scott Bloomquist has died in a plane crash on August 16th near his home in Tennessee. Reports are that he was the sole occupant in a J3 Cub that he owned, and the plane went down on the family farm. Bloomquist has more than 600 victories during a 40-year career. He was 60 years old. We don't have any other details at the time of this report. Okay, here's some updates on big stories in aviation this past week. First, the NTSB released its prelim report on the Citation 10 that crashed on landing at Jamestown, New York. What the NTSB is reporting is that the Citation departed Dunkirk Airport in New York en route to Fort Lauderdale, where it was to pick up parts and a mechanic for another company airplane and bring them back to Dunkirk. Shortly after departure, the plane was cleared for flight level 470, which is 47,000 feet, but received no reply from the plane. The plane was at 10,000 feet, and ATC made numerous contact attempts, but got no reply. And ATC then picked up a 7700 emergency transponder code from the plane as it descended through 7,800 feet. A Buffalo controller was able to establish intermittent contact with the flight crew, and it was garbled, but they heard about to land Jamestown. And the final ADSB track showed the plane aligned with runway 25 at 1,625 feet and 150 knots. The airplane impacted the ground 200 feet short of runway 25. The pilot was not immediately available for an interview with the NTSB due to injuries, but the co-pilot was. And he reported that on the initial climb, he smelled electrical smoke, but the pilot didn't. Then it went away. Then a few moments later, both pilots smelled it, but could not see any visible smoke. And at 10,000 feet, the airplane started trimming for pitch down, and the master caution came on. He tried to alert ATC, but COM 2 had failed, and the Garmin 5000 had the big red X's. There's no further information in the NTSB prelim report on the interview about the landing, with the only other report from the co-pilot is that the egress, after coming to a stop, they were both able to get out through the main cabin door. Both pilots held ATP certificates. The plane had its last airworthiness inspection 1 month prior. The cockpit voice recorder was recovered and will be examined. Weather was VMC, a few clouds at 3,700 feet. Winds were 6 knots at 220. The biggest unanswered question from the NTSB prelim report is why the Citation landed short of runway 25. We'll have to wait for the final report. In France, 2 fighter pilots were killed when their Dassault Rafale fighter jets collided in midair. The collision was in northeastern France, and a third pilot was able to safely eject. Designed in the 70s and 80s, the Rafale was introduced after some delays in 2001 and is considered one of the most advanced warplanes in the world. It is made almost entirely in France. The cause is unclear and the French authorities are investigating. Okay, before we get to the new information on the ATR crash and the man that kept instructing pilots after his certifications were pulled, let's talk about the U.S. Coast Guard with the big mess they have to clean up. In Mobile, Alabama, the United States Coast Guard woke up to a hangar full of firefighting foam. Say that fast 3 times. With 7 aircraft inside the hangar. In an apparent technical malfunction, the system went off in the night, drenching 3 HC-144 Ocean Sentry airplanes and 4 MH-60 Jayhawk helicopters with nearly 400 gallons of high-expansion foam. Lieutenant Earl Roberts reports that the aircraft are not a complete loss and thorough inspections are underway. No one was inside the hangar at the time of the mishap, and I hope those birds can take flight again. I'd hate to see those lost. We're going to get to the new info on the ATR crash, but I want to give an update on our report of the Robinson R-44 crash in Australia that claimed the life of its pilot, now known Blake Wilson. He was from New Zealand and had earned his commercial helicopter certificate there, but was not yet legal to fly in Australia. He'd gotten a job in Cairns, Queensland, at Nautilus Aviation as a ground handler. And Nautilus reports that Wilson was due to fly to Horn Island to start a new position with the company following a promotion. It appears that Wilson and some friends went out to celebrate the promotion, and somehow Wilson ended up taking the R-44 for an unauthorized flight that lasted only 4 minutes before crashing into the Doubletree Hotel. It's an extremely sad case for a young man that had a big future ahead of him. Okay, new information on the Vopas ATR that crashed in Brazil. While it's still too early to know the cause, whether it was icing or something else, some cockpit voice conversations are being reported, and information about the aircraft has come out, according to Brazil's agency that is investigating. The crash happened on August 9th and was captured in multiple angles in chilling video with 61 people on board. And what you see in the video is what aviators call a flat spin. For the non-pilots out there, here are some quick definitions. Okay. A stall is an aerodynamic anomaly that occurs when the smooth airflow over a wing is disrupted, causing a loss of lift. And it happens when the pilot exceeds what is referred to as the critical angle of attack. A spin is an uncoordinated stall that causes the aircraft to rotate around its vertical axis, most commonly induced when one wing stalls before the other, caused by incorrect rudder control during the stall, like left or right input, which causes the airplane to begin rotating. A stall is a prerequisite of a spin. In the videos, you see the airplane in a stall. The airflow is not moving over the wings to generate lift, and it's spinning flat to the horizon. Pilots are trained in stall recovery techniques, but there are situations where recovery is extremely difficult. Some people have pointed to icing, but we don't know yet if that is the cause of the stall spin. But I do have an expert, Joe Casey, who explains how icing disrupts airflow.
Anytime you're flying in icing, you are, I don't want to say you're a test pilot, but the point is that but here's what's happened. The icing is changing the shape of the wing.
Right.
The ice as it
so you are being a test pilot. That's interesting.
It's a weird, I don't want to make a semantic in terms of, but the idea behind it is you don't know how much icing is accruing on the wing. You don't know the shape that the wing now has, because if you get a lot of ice, it literally changes the shape of the wing and causes the wing to stall at a different angle of attack. What angle of attack? I don't know, because you have icing. The point is you don't hang out in icing.
Well, we'll find out, I'm sure, what happened in this case. It's just going to take a little bit of time. It's being reported by Global News that the cockpit audio has the first officer asking the captain what is happening, and then, unclear from the reports at which point in the descent, the first officer called for more power. The FAB, that's Brazil's equivalent to the US FAA, is reporting that from 1321 local, the plane did not respond to calls from the controllers. The last ADSB is 1322. Also, new info out on the aircraft. On March 11th of this year, the aircraft on a domestic flight had a low hydraulic oil level indication. On landing, it suffered a tail strike, and the plane was grounded. And after a couple of weeks, it was ferried to Vopas maintenance facilities and remained there through July 9th, when it was released back into service. It then suffered a loss of cabin pressure on the first flight, and the aircraft was removed from service again for 4 days. And it re-entered service on July 13th until the crash on August 9th. And reports are saying the air conditioner was even out, to the point where one male passenger had removed his shirt. And the agency categorized that tail strike as minor, but many Brazil media outlets are demanding to see the maintenance log, suspecting deeper structural damage. The agency also stated they'd release a preliminary report within 30 days. Okay, our last update is on the man charged with manslaughter and 40 counts of flying without a certificate. Philip McPherson was indicted August 12th. He had been a certified flight instructor, but 2 years ago had had a couple of incidents, and a hotline call to the FAA resulted in a re-examination flight for McPherson. He failed that flight for incompetence, and McPherson voluntarily surrendered his pilot certificate. He was not allowed to fly with passengers. It was very clear. But he continued on in his job as a flight instructor, even though he was not legally allowed to do so. He crashed while instructing, and student Keith Kozel was tragically killed, leaving behind a wife and 2 kids. In a day and age where pictures of everyone are plentiful on social media, it was extremely difficult to locate a picture of McPherson. We did find this one of him on the day of his first solo, and that was on the flight school's website where he got his private pilot certificate. Since then, that flight school has pulled his photo, but we have confirmed that that photo is Philip Everton McPherson. He has pleaded not guilty to all counts, and while news media outlets says he faces 128 years if he was sentenced to the maximum, and the sentences were consecutive and not concurrent, but the legal expert I talked to said more likely is that the 40 counts of flying without a pilot certificate, which carries a maximum of 3 years each, would be concurrent and not consecutive. The manslaughter count has a 7-year maximum, so probable maximum outcome would be 11 years in prison plus fines. All right, that's our weekly update. More news as we get it. Thanks to our sponsors like Flying Eyes Optics. These are the best glasses under helmets and headsets because of the incredible thin frames. They lessen the fatigue. So use our discount code, taking off, all caps, one word, for 10% off. And Z-Vision, the brightest landing and taxi lights out there. I just got some installed on Lola, my Cessna 210, and they are amazing. And check out our other sponsors. The links are below. And if you haven't seen Christie's report on the John Denver crash, check it out here. Thanks for watching, and remember, superior judgment trumps superior skills. Take care.